right, so you're going to be signing books later, right? So. Oh, Reverend Spelling, I should say. Speller.
Yeah, we say that we make branch reservations at 1, so there'd be a little bit of time to do that. Yes. Christina's up here.
It was good to see her. I hadn't seen Christina. Wow, I can't believe it was so good. That was so nice. Yeah, I love that. You know, I went online the other day because we had lost all our stuff in the fire, of course, right? And because all the material that I brought back from Virginia was gone, and it's still up. I went onto the online, and so all the stuff that it's all there. So it made me feel really good. You know what I mean? Even ours, the All Saints, the what is the brainstorming thing and all that. Each one of them were still up there. You know, so. Good, how you doing?
I'm doing. I know. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Let me give you a hug. Wait, here, Steve, hold my coffee because I can't. I wouldn't want to be. Beautiful hair. Oh, good to see you.
Whoops. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right.
No, that's fine.
You're loaded well.
Yeah.
Good, no.
Stephanie, pleasure. Great to see you. Okay, so anybody back there, you'll just come forward. Yeah, we're over here. You'll pretend there's nothing from here back. So.
You know what I mean? So you can figure out. She's only going to sing this after the camera.
Thank you so much. Teamwork. There we go. Teamwork.
Maybe I'll try. I'm going to try to get her to do it. Just, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be good if we could do that. Yeah. Okay.
I know me either. I forgot my phone.
Hey, good morning. Two of you. Good to see you. Hey. Okay. Because, hey, let's go in. I have to afterwards I'll ask you. Because, with Randy and Brian and Green, we're trying to put together a discussion about a small group, you know, because just to be able to talk about it, because there's so much misinformation about it, and people think that it's actually something that's happening. Right?
No, I like to be optimistic. That's a stretch.
Yeah, they already have a development plan.
Yeah, they are. I can't imagine.
Oh, and knowing all the tactical on that, I know that. I know.
Yeah, I'm not about to ride the fish on it.
I know. Oh, my goodness. I know. I know.
Oh, okay, it's on. There we go. Oh, okay.
I was just trying to build the same thing. Yeah, instead of trying to do it just wait until Oh, I was just going to ask you where. That's, we'll have to talk about that because it's been our challenge, because we lost our home in the fire. So we talk about space that redefines everything. Yeah, so we had to do a lot about the dinner when we were downtown LA. That was one of those. And on top of the
All right, good morning, all saints. The magic machine tells me it is 9:00, so we are ready to go live. Welcome if you're streaming online, wherever you are. We're glad you're here this morning in the All Saints Forum. If you're in the room, I encourage you to find your way forward and find a seat because we're just about to begin. We do only have 45 minutes because then we have to go do church. So I don't want to waste a lot of time, but I'm just so delighted and honored to have been asked to introduce our forum speaker this morning. I'm Susan Russell, one of the priests on staff, and I could not be more thrilled to welcome back to All Saints Church one of our longtime friends, colleagues, sisters in the struggle, the Reverend Canon Dr. Stephanie Spellers. Yeah. So I wrote it down so I don't miss anything. One of the Episcopal Church's leading thinkers around 21st century ministry and mission. Canon Spellers is a priest and a pastor, an author and an organizer, and one of the architects of Sacred Ground, part of the Episcopal Church's church-wide racial reconciliation initiative, which has just completed its inaugural offering here at All Saints Church. Hands up for Sacred Ground. After nearly a decade as a canon to former presiding Bishop Michael Curry, you may have heard of him, she currently serves as canon in residence at St. Bart's in New York City, a native of Frankfort, Kentucky, and a graduate of both Episcopal Divinity School and Harvard Divinity School. Stephanie also holds an honorary doctorate from General Theological Union and has just completed her 5th book. We have the other 2. Christina told me to hold them up, so I always do what Christina tells me. We have her 2 earlier books for sale, and Stephanie will be signing some books after church on the lawn, and they're both brilliant. And Radical Welcome actually includes stories of her visit to All Saints Church back, 15 years ago? 20 years ago. So it's not only a great read, but it's part of our history as well. So I commend it to you, and they'll be for sale. Christina will help you with that. Her 5th book, which is what we're here to talk about today, explores what non-religious Americans, what Stephanie names as the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, and duns, as in done with church, can teach us about the future of faith. That's what we're here to learn about her from this morning. And so with no further ado, I give you the Reverend Dr. Canon Stephanie Spellers.
Good morning, my friends. How y'all doing? Good. This is day 6, I think, of my visit this time around. So it was great being in the parking lot and being like, oh, hey, Sue. Hey, Clara. Hey, Steve. Hey, everybody. It's so wonderful. Just a blessing. Truly a blessing to be with you and to share about my research and latest book. So let's get down to it. I was born in 1971. At the time, 90% of Americans identified as Christian, and 4% claimed no religion at all. By 1997, the year of my baptism, 81% of Americans said they were still Christian. 8% reported no preference at all. This year is 2025, and I celebrate 20 years of ordained ministry in the Episcopal Church. God help me. According to the reports from 2024, some 62% of Americans claim Christianity. 28% of Americans are nuns. Now, if you draw the line, at least from here, you'll see the line from 75 to 2000 to 2024, and then extend that trajectory out another 25, 50 years. Do the math. Makes you shiver. And then I invite you to factor in, if you are brave, the reality that nuns make up close to half of millennials and Gen Zs, Americans who are age 18 to about 45. Did you feel that? And there's one more. This stat I am obsessed with. Over the last 3 decades, from 1990 until 2020, the Episcopal Church has lost more than 40% of our membership. Now, we shouldn't feel so bad. We're not alone. The Presbyterians and the UCCs lost half. Wow. Lutherans said goodbye to more than a third. So take a deep breath, friends. And let's just acknowledge that it is rough out there. Most church leaders I know don't really even sit for too long with these kinds of stats. It hurts, and we don't quite know what we're supposed to do with it all. But when we get quiet, when we get honest, we can admit to one another that there are some strong winds shaking the traditional churches. And doing what we've always done, but doing it better or doing it with a few people who really love what we love, that's just no longer an option. Traditional Christianity in America has officially been in systemic decline for my entire vocation. We need to do some honest reckoning. We need to acknowledge, for instance, that non-religious people, the nuns, as in people who would check the box for no religion, none, or the duns who are just done with religion, they are a significant force in American life. Many of them were never Christian to begin with, so they have no church to come back to. And even if they have a church background or feel spiritual, they'd rather connect with the holy outside of church. So what if? What if we went out to listen and learn by their side? What if we learned how to accompany them and partner with them? What if we asked together, what will church be tomorrow? Well, I needed to ask those questions. And so after I completed my term working for presiding Bishop Michael Curry when he retired, I spent the first 2 months of this year traveling America, conducting interviews with people ages 18 to 44 who were non-religious. In other words, the young nuns and duns. I asked each of those people, I interviewed about 45 people, and I asked each of them 4 questions. First, share with me about your spiritual journey. What path led you to where you are now? Second, how and where do you experience the sacred, the ultimate, the mystery, meaning? Third, how and where do you experience community and belonging? And finally, what would you tell the church or organized religion if we would shut up and listen? Well, they had a lot to say. They were honest, they were unvarnished, they were prophetic. And their wisdom may point the way where God is leading us all. That's the premise of my newest book, which comes out on December 1st. Yay. But if you pre-order, you can actually have it sometime in November. Pretty awesome. The book is titled Church Tomorrow, What the Nuns and Duns Teach Us About the Future of Faith. And before I share some of the voices of those young adults that I met, I want to share with you some of what I had to learn about why so many Americans have disaffiliated from religion and would prefer to seek the sacred beyond church. So, some things that we know. We know that the heyday for American Christianity was undoubtedly the 1950s. Anybody alive in the 50s? Just checking. Between post-World War II positive attitudes, a population boom, as in boomers, and the hyper-Christian response to communism and the Cold War, you had 96% of Americans saying that they were Christian in 1956. 96%. All of that began to shift in the 1960s. How many of you were a part of that shift? Yeah. Younger Americans, women, people of color were posing serious questions about American institutions. The baby boomers rejected your parents' traditions, birthed a counterculture with liberated approaches to relationships, sexuality, drugs, music, and religion. Now, from the boomers on, we have seen successive generations becoming less and less religious. And by the time you get to the millennials, 43% of them are Christian, 42% are non-religious. And Generation Z, the youngest, well, 38% of them are Christian, 46% are nuns. Today, the majority of the youngest generation in America are non-religious. So what happened? Where did everybody go? Well, first and most important, there was a dropped baton. There's been very little generational replacement, especially among mainline Protestants. Parents didn't engage their children in religious education, or if they did, a lot of the children could sense when they watched their parents that religion was really an obligation, not a primary commitment that was changing their parents' lives. So they thought, and this is my generation, we thought if our parents don't really care, why should we? But there are also some deeper cultural currents that are pushing people away from traditional religion and toward the path of the nuns and duns. And for this, I'm leaning into the work of Peter Berger and James Emery White. Together, they speak of three of these cultural currents, and I just want to touch on each one. First of all, there's privatization driving us away from religion and away from each other. Privatization isolates faith and isolates us until the self is the only source of authority that we even trust. Nothing has privatized American life and tucked us into individual, self-autonomous pods quite like technology. How many of y'all have a cell phone in your pocket? Go ahead, pull it out, wave it around. You know that thing. You know that thing. How many of you got here in cars? You know those. How many of you were watching TV last night, Dodger fans? Yeah. The internet, mobile phones, all of it. We know more about everything and can go almost anywhere. And we are less connected to one another, to institutions as a whole, and to God. The next force that's pushing us away from traditional religion is secularization. We are still a very deeply spiritual nation, we Americans, but Christianity is, and you know this, it's a less dominant force in American life. What's also true is that the religious right has so dominated the public image of Christianity that a lot of Christians who are more moderate or liberal just gave up. We said, I would rather not be anywhere near the image of Christianity. If you weren't conservative, you would leave rather than be associated with the right's hypocrisy, judgment, exclusivity, and patriarchy. They bailed. They bailed. And the final force pushing Americans out of church and toward the land of the nuns is pluralization. As different cultural and racial groups have migrated to America, they've added fresh expressions to the spiritual marketplace. That's good. But it's also tricky because now shoppers can pick and choose, mix and match. You've seen this, you've done this. Everybody's putting together their bespoke, I think of it as almost like the bento box of spirituality. I can consume the spiritual resources that I want. I can assemble it along lines with whatever I crave. And I have my own religious path. Anybody else with me on that? It almost doesn't matter. All of these forces together have created an increasingly post-Christian America. So what does spiritual life look like? What does community life look like for young adults who are now steeped in this post-Christian, non-religious American landscape? And what are they revealing to us about the future of faith? Well, let's get to the questions. I went around speaking again with these young nuns and duns, and I started out with everyone with the first question: just share with me about your spiritual journey. And in a way, what this question surfaced was, why are you a nun or a dun? For many of them, they might have rejected religion, but God has not abandoned them. Many of them grew up religious, but they found, I just don't believe. For instance, there was Andy in San Francisco. He struggled growing up, Latino and Catholic in Texas. And he told me, I had a hard time with the ghostly authoritarian figure that's finger wagging at me from a distance. And I really had a hard time with institutions and organizing. I personally had to separate the church and spirituality, he told me, because the church is a man-made thing. He continued, for people who really believe in their religion, hey, I think it's great. It helps to instill good values, gives them a community. But I like to think of myself as an honest person, and I would feel like an imposter being all the way in with church. Other people told me that they had to say no to religion because churches hurt people. They said church just isn't worth their time. And now they can be spiritual on their own with fewer strings attached. They said they didn't want to be pinned down or labeled. And as I mentioned, a lot of them were just never religious to begin with. We went on to that second question, but how do you experience the sacred out there where you are? And they told me that so much of it happens when they're connecting with family, friends, lovers. I think of Flor, who is 21, a white college student in Atlanta. Flor told me, when people are together making music, there's something really strong in that. I feel it similarly at protests, when there's a spirit of a bunch of people in one place doing one thing. It's really powerful. Flor went on to tell me, in fact, that's probably the most visceral connection I've had. I don't think I've ever had a moment of feeling the divine when I've been on my own. I don't think that happens for me. It's always when I'm with a group of people. Other people said that they feel spiritual when they're being creative and embodied, when they're engaging with the natural world, when they're reflecting in silence, maybe meditating or silently reading. Lots and lots of them experience the spiritual as they have expanded their spiritual horizons and traditions. And many of them shared with me about how paying attention in a fragmented world has really become a spiritual activity. I think of Dylan, who told me about how he's had to quiet the siren song of digital media culture. It's actually helped him to open to the sacred. Dylan lives in New York City, and in 2016, he said he just cut off his Facebook. He said his life was filled with competing messages and competing things. And he and his wife in New York, they're trying to raise their 2 sons who are 8 and 10. Dylan said, there's something I want to reinforce with my boys, paying attention to what's right there. That's how they're experiencing the sacred. How are they experiencing community? Honestly, this was the hardest part for everyone I spoke to. Stephanie in San Francisco, she broke my heart. She shared with me about her hunger. She said, something I've been yearning for is community, that sangha, or that group of people who participate together in teachings and in service. I can get pretty excited about reading philosophy and spirituality on my own, but integrating it, practicing it, she said, to have that, I need people. Give me some people. She's a hospice nurse, and Stephanie practices at a yoga studio, and she told me that she's made some really sweet connections with her classmates. But she said, deep, meaningful community, I would say I don't have. I have 2 really solid friends here in the Bay Area that I feel like I can call on. I have my partner, but I don't feel like there's a place where I could say, this is home. These are my people. The older I get, another year has passed where I'm not a part of something. I wonder, do I even know how to go about this? Whew. Wow. And some folks are still trying. They're trying to find community out there in that privatized, secular, pluralistic world. And these are the places where they are finding belonging. They're finding it with chosen family. They're finding it with music and the arts. They're finding it all, so many of them are finding it in run and yoga groups. They are finding it at work, making meaning through their jobs. And a lot of them are finding belonging in alternative worship communities, especially the ones that are online. The final question that I pose to these young nuns and duns: what is it that you want churches to know? What's the future of faith? What would you tell us if we would finally just listen? Well, I think the answers to this question comprise something of a prophecy, a prophetic calling from the nuns and duns to the church. Here's what they're saying to us. First of all, please read these with me, would you? Stop making idols of your institutions, buildings, rules, and dogma. Well, and I need to say, for every one of the things they told me, I was like, you're not wrong. Casper in New York told me about how he actually does a lot of consulting with religious organizations. So even though he's not religious, he knows a lot of our struggles. In addition to tying up our money and our energy, he said to me that the money and the energy we spend on buildings seems like to him it could be spent on direct service, direct mission. Casper wondered if our obsession with buildings is a part, and this was so insightful on his part, if our obsession with buildings is actually a part of our nostalgia for the glory days of Christian establishment. Casper went on, those buildings are like a representation of your respectability, your power, your influence, even though your churches don't really have much of that anymore. You have a lot to offer, he told me. It's just probably not in the ways you think. Churches have historically leaned into maintenance and preservation of our goods, of our policies, of our beliefs, of our identities. Our non-religious friends are reminding us that maybe now it's time to cross-train for flexibility, generosity, and letting go. The next prophecy from the nuns and duns, read this one with me. Go meet the God who is waiting outside. Juliana is a mom of 2 in Atlanta, and sometimes she actually does go to church. She told me, going back to nature, the ability to observe creation, connect with something outside of myself, it supports my health, my well-being, my mental capacity in a different way than just sitting inside listening to a sermon. That's sometimes less relatable, and it doesn't resonate with my own life. Young nuns and duns are urging churches to step out and wake up to what God is doing out there in the world. They're inviting us to honor the sacred in nature, in everyday life, in diverse settings. And they are asking us to bless and incorporate those experiences into our ritual and our shared life. Amen?
Amen.
The third prophecy from the nuns and duns, read this one with me. Form loving, embodied communities that welcome our whole, authentic selves. Stephanie put this so beautifully to me when she just said, I think you all need to dance more. Wow. She said she wishes that churches would lean into the unpredictable wisdom of our bodies and our life experiences. She continued, God shows up in so many ways outside of the rigidity I saw growing up in evangelical Central California. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of obligation. There was a lot of doing things one way. And obviously religion or God or spirituality, she said, it can't be contained. Let it loosen up. Let your kids be kids. Encourage all the people to find God in places that might surprise them. Y'all, the days of passive, fake, obligatory participation are over. And isn't that good news? If you're ready to be authentic, if you're ready to be embodied, if you're ready to be whole, you will have company. Amen. And the final prophecy from the nuns and duns, read this one with me. Will the real Christians please stand up? Amen. Y'all, the majority of millennial and Gen Z nuns and duns that I met were cool with Jesus. It's church they don't want. Especially right now, with white Christo-nationalism on the rise. They truly believe, they have seen with their own eyes, that Christianity has turned its back on empathy, justice, love, and truth. Their challenge to us, and the one that I share with you, is will the real Christians please stand up? I heard this from Craig in Minnesota, who asked me, are you walking in Jesus' footsteps? Because he walked next to the homeless. He helped the prostitutes. He fed the hungry. And then there was Labria in Atlanta. She told me, millennials and Gen Z, we want to pray and act. I've seen generations of prayer, and that's it, she told me. What are we going to do to ignite the prayers? And then there was Ashley. Ashley is a bona fide atheist in Clarksville, Tennessee. That's a hard life for our sister right there. But she was still cheering when the Right Reverend Marianne Buddy, Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, when she got up and preached about mercy at the inaugural prayer service in January. Ashley was watching when it happened, and she said, we don't have a foundational text in atheism, but Christians, you have a book. You have a book that literally says that you've got to take care of people and don't step on the weak. You can stand up in church in front of Trump and tell him he's not following the principles that he purports to stand for. I don't have a book like that, but you do. You have words that say that people shouldn't have to freeze to death outside or get steamrolled for living in homeless encampments. So speak those words. That's an atheist talking to us. These folks may be non-religious and young, but they want to know if there is still hope in this world. They want to know if anybody is still going to speak for love. If we are, well, then we need to say it loud enough that they can hear. And when we do, we need to make sure they know that Jesus sent us. Amen? Amen. So will there be a church tomorrow? I know that there will be. I know there will. But I can't tell you the shape of it, the smell or the sound or the look of it. We will have to listen closely to the God who asked Ezekiel, can these bones live? The same God who then promised, I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live. We will have to reroot in God's abiding love. We will have to welcome wonder and curiosity and admit what we don't know. And we will have to seek unlikely friends and companions on the road. Nobody has all the answers. So please don't toss out who you are or what you have. Accompany these young ones. Let them accompany you. Combine their insight with the church's wisdom and treasures. We might all discover new life. Amen? Amen. Thank you, friends.
Amen, amen, amen. So we have 10 minutes for questions, and I see the priest in charge is multitasking and going to serve as our microphone, and we'll start with Monique, and then I'll let you, we'll just call them all out.
Wonderful.
Oh, we have 10 minutes. Thanks, friend.
Great. I'll try to keep my answers short, too. That'll help.
Thank you. Hi, Stephanie. Nice to see you in person.
Monique, what a joy.
Yes. So, question. We as a church, and I mean Church Big C, are so linked to our tradition and rigidity and hard to change, right?
Yes.
It's hard to change.
Yes.
What do you think are some first steps or tangible steps that we can do as the church to kind of shift and open our doors?
I mean, I think what I heard from, certainly from the nuns and duns, and what I know just from the work of seeding transformation in our church for decades, and watching it happen too in places like All Saints, I believe that it's got to begin with relationship. And in this, I mean, it's got to begin with your heart for others. Do you have a heart for these young ones who are not a part of religious community? Do you have a heart for people who are out there? Again, all of those nuns and duns. Go walk with them. Go ask the 4 questions that I shared with you. And then as you hear from them, invite them to join you in transformation. Let them help you to create whatever is next for All Saints. You can't figure it out in this room by yourselves. You can't figure it out no matter how creative you are. You don't know everything that they know about how the Spirit is showing up outside because you're in here. And it's good that you're in here. It's good that you are finding what you love. But you're going to need to hear more. You're going to need to open your hearts to more. You're going to need to yearn for relationship out there. And if you yearn enough, and we spoke about this yesterday when I met with folks who have completed Sacred Ground. How many of you were a part of that or have done Sacred Ground in this community? God bless you all for that. One of the things we spoke about is that when you start to form that community and your heart is broken in love for that other, you're willing to make change, and it actually doesn't feel like such a sacrifice. You've begun to realize that, oh wow, the things I was holding on to because I love them, it's not that I love them less, but I'm willing to let some of those traditions go because I love you more. I'm willing to let some of my preferences go because it makes room for some of what you love, some of the music you love, some of the culture you love, some of the ways that you speak to God. I want to be illuminated by that more than I want to hold on to what I've always loved. You get to that place and the change will flow.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dan McCarroll.
Good morning, Dan.
I'm going to shout out to my Monday night EFM class, of which almost half are here.
Oh, wow.
Morning.
Any EFM folk in the house?
12, yeah. And I'm saying that because it was so interesting. I thought we've just begun the new year, and we've gone through our spiritual autobiography as part of that program, which I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yes.
And so many of the issues that you raised in these people were the experiences of the people in our class. And our average age is about 60, 65.
Yes, yes.
And so in that sense, some of this isn't really new. It's always been underlying. And yet, it's how do you connect? I mean, because, and it's true of people here, All Saints attracts people often damaged in other faith traditions, or who went off, as I did, on a different path, explored Buddhism for quite a while, came back. But it still perplexes me because I have 3 daughters and just celebrated the marriage of one yesterday. But they all grew up here.
Yep.
But you pretty much described them.
Yeah, you know these
Even
folks.
though they attended here all the time and they know the value of this community and they treasure it. They don't dismiss it in some of those ways. But I just can't figure out how we connect with those people who are so suspicious.
Yeah.
And I was one at one point. So, I mean, I know what brought me back, but that's not, I don't know.
I'm gonna go
I love
back
this
to-
work. I'm just
Yeah.
still perplexed.
I'm going to go back to what I shared with Monique as well. I would love for people to read this book when it comes out. I would love for people to do book groups. There's a free study guide that comes with the book. But more than that, I would love for churches like All Saints to start your own listening campaign. How many of you have a child or a friend or a work colleague or a neighbor who is 45 or under and is not religious right now? You know someone with whom you could engage this conversation. You've got kids, and maybe what you've said to them is, why won't you come to church? We've got all of these great things. That's usually what it sounds like. What we haven't said to them is, hey, what's happening for you out there? What happened for you in here? What is there that you would tell us if we were listening? Have you ever asked your children or those friends or those neighbors, is there something you wish our churches knew? Ask them that, and I think you'll have a very different conversation. And the connection that you were just talking about, Dan, it would begin to emerge. Because folks do recognize the paths they're on. Honestly, the boomers started on the way. The boomers were the ones asking these questions. The boomers were the ones feeling disillusioned with systems and institution. Again, that's not new. The boomers were the ones exploring lots of different pathways. But the ones who are under the age of 45 right now, they've grown up in a world where that's almost all they see. Everything they see questions authority. Everything they see is hesitant around institution. Everything they've seen, so much of what they've seen, even if they grew up in a church like this, so much of what they've seen is Christianity hurting people. So if you want to communicate something different, be the Christians who listen, be the Christians who are curious, and be the Christians who are humble. Humble enough to allow their perspectives to change you. Last question.
Hello, my name is Clarence. Now, I know
Clarence, good morning.
Good morning. I know you were speaking mostly about the major denominations. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the draw for non-denominational churches, since apparently they're big, like Hillsong? I don't know if you've heard of that, or some of these other churches. So, why is it that people are, and I guess young people, because I know Hillsong makes a big deal of having people like Chris Pratt in there.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think is the draw?
This is a trend, and you may have even read about this some, that it turns out that Gen Z actually are going to church, especially the ones who identify as religious, because 38% of them still do. And the ones who do are increasingly involved in those non-denominational, more conservative evangelical churches or conservative Catholic churches. So a lot of folks are like, wait a second, something's happening over there. I have some theories about what's happening. I'm going to just reel these off so we can get upstairs. My alb is right there, so I can put it on and fly like Superman. But a few things that are going on here. First of all, many of them did grow up without a sense of ground under them. They grew up in families that said, whatever you want, it's all good. Turns out a lot of people don't thrive without anything under them, without any footing. So honestly, the flexibility that a lot of us thought was great in our churches, where we said, you can be anything, it's fine. They needed to hear, but here's why I am Christian. Here's why Christianity, here's why Jesus actually does make a difference. We don't communicate that. They do. So that's one of the draws. Another of the draws is the Spirit. What I said, what they told us about community, what they told us about embodied, loving community. You can say what you want about those non-denominational churches, but many of them, especially the ones that are kind of coming through that Pentecostal strain, the Pentecostal church began in LA as a Black Spirit movement. So those churches are often way more multicultural. We're sitting here trying to struggle to be multicultural. They just do it. We're trying to figure out how to be more spiritual and how to open up, our bodies. They're doing it. So a lot of these young people are going to those communities because the Spirit is there. The theology is highly problematic. The hierarchy makes me want to pull my hair out, or the way that they kind of place their ministers on pedestals is highly problematic. So is a lot of ours. And so when they're given that choice, they're going where they sense life.